In 2 Chronicles chapter 24, we hear a little bit about two prophets and priests. One is Jehoiada, who grew old and died at the end of a very, very long life. And as soon as he passed away, they buried him in the city of David among the kings because he had done good in Israel and for God and for God's house. As soon as this godly man dies, then it says that the officials of Judah came and they got the ear of the king, and they abandon the house of the Lord, the God of their ancestors. They commit idolatry, and because of that, wrath comes upon Judah and Jerusalem. But we're told in verse 19 that God sent prophets among them to bring them back to the Lord, but they would not listen. And in verse 20 it says, "Then the Spirit of God took possession of Zechariah, son of the priest Jehoiada. He stood above the people and said to them, 'Thus says God, why do you transgress the commandments of the Lord, so that you cannot prosper? Because you have forsaken the Lord, he has also forsaken you.'" And if I were to keep reading, you would learn that they conspire against him, and by command of the king, they take him and they stone him to death in the court of the house of the Lord. So they kill Zechariah, a prophet of God, in the court of the very house of the Lord. Being a prophet, as we see reading from here in the Bible and going forward, is a very difficult job. Prophets are not popular. They bring a message that people don't want to hear, because usually God is using the prophet to show the people where they are sinning and transgressing God's laws or commandments or statutes. And even though the word of the prophets and the presence of a prophet is a sign that God is still concerned for the people, sadly, many of them, like Zechariah, meet a violent death because people in power are often very resistant to being told where they are coming up short. This passage and this incident is actually referred to by Jesus both in Matthew and in Luke's Gospel. In Luke chapter 11, when Jesus is encountering very stiff resistance now from the lawyers, the scribes, and the Pharisees, he refers back to, sadly, what has been a tradition where for generation after generation, prophets have not been welcomed and heard and heeded. They have been treated with violence or ignored or not listened to. And Jesus even references the blood of Zechariah who perished between the altar and the sanctuary. One of the things we want to do in our own time is we want to heed and hear and obey the words of the prophets, that we might be true to God in our time.